Coffee Break read Children with Swords and Pistols from Transgressor Trilogy Times of Change by E.M. Swifthook. Outside it was dark and the air was cold. Rallick took a moment to find his charge, since Zarangor was braced against the wall, his lean body almost invisible against the rough stonework. "Don't you have a home to go to?" The black Vavasor's voice sounded weary. "I am old enough to be out on my own, you know." Rallick said nothing. There was nothing to say. It was easy enough to understand the level of frustration that the other man had to contend with. "Don't you just love these Harkirans? They think themselves so civilized and superior, regarding war as unreasonable. Think a man who can write poetry or design a building is of more value than one who can use a sword. They regard their women as their equals in all things, and even give legal rights to their slaves and their animals." His voice was very slightly slurred, betraying the amount of alcohol he had consumed. "But when it comes to good old-fashioned affairs of the heart, they are as quick as the next man to leap to the wrong conclusions and draw their blades." Rallick watched a group of young Harkiran noblemen leave the inn. They were obviously looking for something or someone and carried lights. "It is getting late, honoured one," he said carefully. Zarangor, when drinking, could be persuaded but never pushed. "Then you go home," the other man suggested, his voice quite friendly. "I was thinking of finding another Harkiran matron of high standing to ravish. Your castellan's wife, perhaps." Rallick stiffened at the insult, but said nothing, knowing it was deliberate, knowing Zarangor was goading him, and knowing also it was the frustration and the drink that spoke through him. The Harkirans were getting closer, and the mood Zarangor was in, it could easily end with blood on the street. Their blood. "Death of the gods, Rallick! What does someone have to do to get under your skin?" Zarangor sounded amused more than irritated. The Harkirans had heard the voice, if not the words, and were moving now with intent. Rallick moved closer to his charge, who seemed to notice the threat for the first time, and groaned aloud. "Oh, joy! Children with swords and pistols! Just what I needed to make my day complete." The 5 young men, none of whom could have seen more than 20 summers, moved to confront them, throwing the burning torches to the ground, and 2 of them had drawn swords. A third rested his hand on the butt of a finely crafted pistol. Zarangor still rested against the wall. "Tell them I'm not hungry, Rallick. I've eaten enough babies today." "I'm more man than you are, butcher," the ringleader called out. Zarangor laughed briefly. "Of course you are. That's why you have your 4 friends with you. Brave child. Go home to your mother and suckle some more, then you might grow up big and strong one day." The Harkiran made a sound of incoherent fury and launched himself forward. Zarangor barely seemed to move away from the wall, his sword suddenly in his hand and cutting down through the youngster's guard, drawing blood on his shoulder. The Harkiran stepped back, but found he could not escape the blade, which seemed to be everywhere. Then, as his sword went flying, he tried to jump aside. Rallick's own blade came up and caught the death cut at the last moment, and moved, ready to parry again as the deadly blade disengaged. "He is only a boy," Rallick said the words urgently and ungently. "He is only a boy." Rallick said the words urgently and ungently, part of his mind furious at Zarangor for allowing himself to drink to the point of such judgment loss, and for the rest, afraid that he himself might now become a target for the feral sword. But the Vavasor seemed to come to himself, hesitating to attack through Rallick, and the youngsters took advantage of the moment to escape, disappearing into the darkness at speed. For a moment, the two men stood facing each other, swords in their hands. Rallick waited with the point of his own blade towards the ground in a defensive gesture. He could not afford to surrender any advantage. Zarangor, drunk or not, was by far the superior swordsman. Then the Vavasor sighed and lowered his sword slowly. "We should find the ponies," he said heavily, sliding the blade back into its sheath. Rallick allowed himself to relax and stepped back carefully before putting his own sword away.